What's up, guys? I'm Tim. Welcome to Kratom Crazed. Um, Today, I want to talk a little bit about anxiety and panic attacks. I have been suffering from anxiety for about 16, 15 years now. Yeah. It started year, again, 15 years ago, obviously. I just said that. Um, anyway, yeah, it started one day. This is the first time I can remember ever feeling real anxiety. Um, Now, back in the day, I used to smoke a lot of pot for about 2 years. I actually didn't start until I was almost 19, but I loved it, and all my friends were like the hippies and sort of stoner types. So yeah, it my life pretty much revolved around it for a couple years. I'd smoke pot like all day, every day, pretty much. And it's not good to smoke that much. Like I'm totally not against people smoking pot. I don't smoke anymore, but my roommates do, and I have a lot of really close friends who smoke, quite a bit. But it's really not good to smoke it all day, every day. I mean, it does it can have a negative effect on your life if you do that. But when used, in moderation and responsibly and everything, it's perfectly fine, and it can be extremely beneficial to your health and everything. So anyway, this one day I was pretty stoned, and when I smoked weed, I could focus on things a lot better than I could when I was sober. Um, as an artist, that was very helpful because I could focus on a piece of artwork that I was doing a lot better. I mean, I draw, or at least I used to draw, a lot of portraits of like people and stuff, faces mostly. And usually I get like halfway through it, and I'm the type that I can't set it down and pick it up later and finish it. I have to draw a picture start to finish in like one sitting. Now I can take little breaks. I can take, smoke breaks or a coffee break or whatever. But I can't set it down and then pick it up a week later and finish it. So I pretty much have to force myself to finish a portrait once I start drawing it. Otherwise, it'll just never get finished. So anyway, usually what ends up happening is I get like halfway through it and I start to get bored. My mind starts to wander. I can't focus on it very well. So I end up just sort of rushing through the rest of it just to get it done. And the artwork suffers as a result of that. So when I smoked pot, I didn't have that problem. I could focus completely on it the entire time, and so that was definitely helpful to me. But um, it can also be bad because you can focus on negative things. And that's what happened to me one day. Now, when I was about 15, my grandfather passed away of a heart attack. And this one day I was really stoned and I was just sitting outside by myself. And I started thinking about my grandpa and what it must have felt like for him to have a heart attack. I started trying to imagine what a heart attack might feel like. And because I could focus so much of my mind on that one thing, I started becoming like hyper aware of my own body. I started realizing that my heart rate was raised. And, as I'm sitting there trying to imagine what a heart attack might feel like, I started feeling the symptoms of a heart attack, basically, because that's what anxiety and panic attacks are. They basically, they feel almost identical to a heart attack. Your heart's racing, it's hard to breathe, your chest gets all tight, and, your brain is convinced that there's something physically wrong with you and that you are in imminent danger, when really you're not. But anyway, during that experience, it wasn't a full-on panic attack. It was just sort of mild anxiety. But it was the first time I had ever felt it, and it was pretty scary. So after that, I started to find that every time I smoked pot, I started to feel that anxiety again. Um, and at first, it was just, I continued smoking pot. I just sort of cut back a little bit. Um, but it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Every time I would smoke, the anxiety would be worse. Um, and then it eventually got to a point where I just couldn't smoke pot unless I was like drunk. And, by that time I was still in like my early 20s. I was like 21, 22. So I was drinking a lot, and it was fine. Everybody parties at that age, and, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're responsible about it. And I was for the most part, not always, but, you know, what are you going to do? I'm human. Um, Anyway, so yeah, I was okay if I was drunk. Then I could smoke because alcohol's a depressant. So, you know, um, it sort of lowers your heart rate and stuff like that. So the anxiety just wasn't able to get really bad when I was drunk. But eventually, as the anxiety got worse, it got to a point where I just wasn't able to smoke pot at all, even when I was drunk. It would give me an anxiety attack every single time. So I had to quit pretty much completely. And I say pretty much because still to this day, every once in a while, I will take like a hit of weed off a joint or a pipe or whatever. Not a bong hit by any means. That's too much for me. I can't do that anymore. But a hit off of like a joint or a pipe, I still do that every once in a while. It's extremely rare, like maybe once a year, if that. So, um, and I can get away with that because one hit isn't enough to get me high. It's not really enough to, raise my heart rate to a point where I start getting scared, I guess, or panicky about it. I basically just do it because I like the taste, and it's sort of a memory thing for me. I have a lot of good memories from back in the days when I was a pot smoker. I had a lot of really good friends back then, and we had a lot of fun, a lot of really great times together. So, sometimes just having like a little taste of pot like that, just helps bring back some of those memories. So, that's a good thing. But really, I can't smoke pot anymore. So yeah, so then that's how the anxiety started for me. Now the first really severe panic attack I had, the first one that I could even call a panic attack really, happened a couple years after I first started suffering from like mild anxiety. Um, and I was just sitting in my room one night, drawing a picture. I had my music on. Now I used to have this really bad habit of taking Tylenol PM every night, and I was really taking it to get high. It gives you sort of a high, and it became a habit for me. It was just part of like my nightly ritual. But you build up a tolerance to that stuff, especially when you're young, and so I would have to start taking more and more and more after a while, the more, the longer it was that I was taking that stuff every night. So I had gotten to a point where I was literally taking 13 all at once every night. And that's too much. Tylenol is very, very bad for your liver. Um, and now the I think it's diphenhydramine or diphenhydramine, however you want to say it, is the ingredient in Tylenol PM that makes you kind of drowsy, and it's what helps you get to sleep. It's also the exact same ingredient that's in Benadryl, which is an allergy medication. It's an antihistamine. Um, and it's also the same ingredient in like Sominex and other sleeping pills. So that stuff, when I take it, it always gives me a certain degree of anxiety because it does sort of raise my heart rate. And that's what really triggers anxiety for me is my heart. Because like I said, it started from basically a fear of heart attacks, because that was the first time I ever remember feeling anxious, was focusing on this, imagining what a heart attack would be like. And then from that point on, anything that raised my heart rate, or, whenever my heart like skipped a beat, or even if it felt like my heart was beating too slow. Just anything having to do with my heart at all triggers anxiety for me and can trigger panic attacks. So anyway, the the Tylenol PM would always give me a certain degree of anxiety. Usually it wasn't really bad. It wasn't anything I couldn't manage, I mean, it was just a slight discomfort that would last a little while, and then I'd get over it and be fine. But this one night, I guess my mind just was in a place it shouldn't have been. I really have no idea what triggered it. A lot of times it's impossible to pinpoint what triggers anxiety or what triggers a panic attack. I know that the raised heart rate is what initially gets it started, but sometimes that only leads to mild anxiety. Other times it leads to a full-on panic attack. So it's really hard to tell what's going on in your subconscious that is causing you so much fear and anxiety. So anyway, I really don't know what brought it on, but I just remember I was in my room. I went to walk out into the living room where all my roommates were, and all of a sudden I just felt really dizzy, couldn't catch my breath, and I felt almost like I was going to pass out. And it scared, and it only lasted a few seconds. I mean, it didn't last very long, but it scared me because I was like, what was that? I've never felt anything like that before. So when it happened, I just remember sort of turning around and running back into my room, because it was just like this instantaneous, like out of nowhere feeling of dread and panic, like, oh my God, get out of here right now. So I just turned around and ran into my room. So then I just sort of like paced back and forth in my room for a minute. I thought that it was better because, like I said, it only lasted a few seconds. I was still really concerned about it and like kind of freaking out, but I wasn't, feeling the dizziness or anything anymore. So a few seconds later, I went to go walk back out in the living room, and it happened again. And at that point, I just told my roommates, something's wrong with me. I need to go to the hospital. Because I was just like freaking out. I had no idea what this was. And so at that point, it started coming in waves. It would be like, I'd feel the dizziness and, shortness of breath and everything, feeling like I was going to pass out. I'd feel that for a few seconds. Then it would sort of die down for a few minutes, and then it would hit me again, and then it would die down, and then it would hit me again. And it was like that the entire way to the hospital. And, they got me into the emergency room and everything. And that's when they, the doctors and stuff informed me that it was just a panic attack, and they gave me medicine for it, and I was fine. But since then, I've been in the hospital, I think 4 or 5 times for severe panic attacks. Even though I know what they are now, that first time was by far the scariest because I didn't know what it was. And I thought that there was actually something physically wrong with me. Now, with every panic attack, even if you know it's a panic attack, you still can't help but feel somewhere in the back of your mind that there might still be something physically wrong with you. For me, at least, I know that every time I have an anxiety attack or a full-on panic attack, I should say, it feels slightly different than any time before. Or maybe it doesn't, and maybe that's just my subconscious brain convincing me that there's something different about it this time. But it doesn't, for me, it doesn't feel exactly the same every time. So even though I know it's anxiety, even though I know I'm just panicking, my brain is still telling me, yeah, this feels a lot like a panic attack, but it's a little bit different. So maybe it's actually something more serious. Maybe there's actually something wrong, And that's just part of anxiety. That's part of what it does. You even if you know what's happening, there's a part of your brain that can't convince yourself that you're okay and that it's just anxiety. So anyway, at first, they put me on like Xanax and, other benzodiazepines to deal with the panic attacks because they had determined that I suffered from panic disorder, which is an ongoing thing where, you have panic attacks periodically, I mean, it may not happen every day, may not happen every week, may not even happen every month, but you have them repeatedly. And anyway, so they put me also on like antidepressants because a lot of antidepressants um, also treat anxiety disorders. Uh, so yeah, so they put me on those. Now, I found that with the antidepressants, they did not make the anxiety go away. I mean, it was still there. It was a little bit better controlled. Um, I didn't feel the mild anxiety all the time like I did before. Um, I didn't have panic attacks quite as often, but I still had them and they were still just as bad. So it wasn't like, taking that medication prevented them completely. It did not. Um, with my anxiety, I felt sort of a mild anxiety feeling every day for years. It's not like that anymore. I'm doing much better with it now, but I've been dealing with it for 15 years and I've learned, how to deal with it. And I think that's really like the only cure, basically. I mean, there is no cure, but it can, it is a mental disorder. So, if you can manage to get your mind in the right place and manage to learn how to deal with it in ways that actually work for you, and those methods are different for everyone. So then you can get yourself to a point where you can function more or less normally. Um, but the anxiety disorder is still going to be there, and it's still going to have some sort of effect on your life. But anyway, um, the yeah, so the antidepressants just like they helped with the general anxiety that I felt every day. I didn't really feel that anymore. But I still had panic attacks, and they will do nothing for a panic attack. It's not like if you're having a panic attack, you can take one of those pills and it'll help. It won't. They're really the only medication that is able to do that is benzodiazepines like Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, Valium, things like that. Those pills are pretty much meant for anxiety, and they will stop a panic attack in progress shortly after you take the pill. I mean, of course, you have to wait for the pill to kick in, which could take 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever. But once it kicks in, it pretty much just calms you down completely. At least for me, that's how they work. That's how they're meant to work, and yeah, and they definitely do the job for me. Now, they may not do the job for everyone, but for most people, I think, that suffer from panic attacks, um, there's nothing more effective than benzodiazepines. However, they are not meant to be taken on a regular basis, and they can be a very, very dangerous drug. Um, there's a very, very high risk of dependency. A lot of people get really, really severely addicted to those. I myself had some pretty serious problems with those pills. Um, Thankfully, I don't anymore, in the sense that I'm really not taking them and haven't for a very long time. But if they are right in front of me, I'm going to take them. I mean, that's how the problem, I still consider myself addicted to those pills because of that. I have enough willpower to not seek those pills out or try and go out and get them or anything like that. I don't feel as though I need them, but if they're right in front of me, somebody offers me some, I'm not going to turn it down. It's there, I'm going to take it. So anyway, they're very dangerous in that regard. They also have a lot of other psychological effects that can be pretty harmful and very scary for the person taking them. For me, they made me extremely motivated, which was a good thing in one regard, but they also motivated me in negative ways. They would make me much more confrontational, for one. So I found myself at one point calling random people that pissed me off 3 years ago and chewing them out for whatever it was that they did that pissed me off in the first place. I'm not a very confrontational person. So, to me at the time when I was taking those pills, it felt good to get these things off my chest, to call that person up and just, chew them out. Probably wasn't fair to them, and it definitely didn't make me look good. And then later when the effects of the pills would leave my system, I guess, I'd feel shitty about it. I'd feel guilty and I'd feel like an asshole. And I didn't like that. But they also motivated me in positive ways. They made me extremely productive. I wanted to get things done. I'm not a very motivated person as it is, so that was good. But they motivated me to a point that I didn't want to sleep because I felt like sleeping was a waste of time. So I would stay up and I'd be doing productive things, but I wouldn't be sleeping. So after a couple days of that, the sleep deprivation starts to affect your mind. You start seeing things like shadow people, and I even caught myself talking to people who weren't there. It was like I was coming in and out of consciousness almost, only I was awake and conscious the whole time. It was like my brain would just shut off for a few minutes. That's what I think it's called, like micro naps or whatever. That's what sleep deprivation leads to. When your body gets to a point where it's like, okay, you have to sleep. We're not giving you a choice anymore. Your brain starts shutting down just for a few seconds at a time. And a lot of times you don't even realize that it's happening. But that is a symptom of sleep deprivation. And that's what was happening. I'd basically be dreaming that I was talking to somebody, and I'd wake up in the middle of a sentence. And I'd think to myself, okay, there's nobody here. Who am I talking to? And it made me feel like I was going crazy, and it was very scary. And yeah, so there are a lot of risks involved with taking benzodiazepines. So yeah, for years I've been struggling with this, trying to find solutions, things, whether it's medical or, like psychological, just things I can do on my own, or like breathing exercises or whatever, just methods to help me get over the anxiety and to deal with the panic attacks when I'm having them without the benzodiazepines. Because eventually it reached a point where my doctors just would not give them to me anymore. And now, just in recent years, doctors have just started refusing to prescribe them to patients in a lot of places. I live in Portland, Oregon, and the doctors here, they literally will not prescribe them. Sometimes benzos are prescribed for seizure disorders, and so they will prescribe them for that. But when it comes to just anxiety, unless it's, a really, really extreme case or something, they just flat out will not prescribe them anymore. And since it's on record that I have had problems with those pills in the past, they definitely will not prescribe them to me. So I've really had no choice. I realize how they were negatively affecting my life, and I don't want that negativity in my life. So I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to go out and look for them. I'm not going to try and buy them on the streets or anything like that. So I had to find other ways to deal with my anxiety. And as far as the panic attacks go, I think that for the most part, I just learned to deal with them on my own. Like if I felt my anxiety reaching a point of panic, I think I've just over the years learned how to stop that panic attack before it starts, just mentally, just on my own, whether it's through, breathing exercises or just going for a walk or whatever. I find that driving helps me because it forces my mind to be on something other than whatever it is that's causing me panic. Sometimes it's just doing something relaxing like taking a hot bath or a shower or just cleaning my house, just things like that. The key is to force your mind onto something else, because anxiety, especially panic attacks, will overwhelm your mind. You literally cannot think of anything else. It's very, very, very difficult. So the key is to catch it before it gets to the point of panic. When you feel a panic attack coming on, and For any of you who suffer from panic disorders, you know that you can tell when a panic attack is coming on before it happens. Usually. Sometimes they can hit you just out of the blue, like immediately, like a slap in the face. But that's not usually the way it happens. Usually you feel sort of mildly anxious, and that just sort of increasingly gets worse until it reaches a point of panic. So the key is to prevent it from reaching the point of panic. So is when you start to feel it coming on, you just have to learn. And, I can't really say what works and what doesn't because it's different for everyone. But like I said, for me, it's driving or taking walks or something, just doing something to force your mind onto something else. Like, I had a lot of doctors recommend to me, like doing the dishes. That didn't work for me. I mean, I know I said that cleaning my house kind of helps sometimes. It does sometimes, not always, because it's not forcing my mind onto something. Doing dishes is a mindless task. You don't have to think about it when you're doing it. So your mind is free to panic. And, so doing the dishes did not help me at all. Cleaning the house sometimes will, other times it won't. It just depends on how severe the panic is. If it's pretty mild, sometimes just cleaning will help. But if it's severe, then no, that's not enough. I've got to do something. Like I said, driving, like I said, really helps because it's forcing your mind onto something. It's not a mindless task. It's something that you have to pay attention to while you're doing it. Now, some people, if your panic gets too severe, you're probably not going to be able to drive because you're not going to be able to focus enough on it, and that can be dangerous. So if you're already having a severe panic attack, it's not a good idea to get behind the wheel. But if it's just mild anxiety and you're just trying to prevent it from becoming a panic attack, then driving can be very helpful. So yeah, it's just all a matter of, what works for you. For some people, they need to get away from other people. They have to go outside, be by themselves, go in their room, lay down, something. For other people, they are more comforted around others. So, it helps them to be around friends and family and, people they're close to, people they trust. And in the most severe cases, if you've been panicking for half an hour or more and it's, not showing any signs of letting up, there's no shame in going to the emergency room or to an urgent care center or something. They will probably just give you a benzodiazepine like Ativan to get you over that panic attack. They're not going to write you a prescription, most likely. I mean, that depends on where you live. But in my experience, they're probably not going to write you a prescription for benzodiazepines because of the dangers involved with those medications. But they will give you, a pill or give you a shot or something just to get you through the panic attack that you're having right then. So yeah. Now, jumping ahead to today. Like I said, I've learned a lot of ways to deal with my anxiety and to catch panic attacks and put a stop to them before they start. But the one thing that I've found that has been so very helpful to me is Kratom. I haven't been taking Kratom very long, probably just, 3 months or so, but it's helped me drastically. I no longer feel the mild anxiety that I had been feeling a lot of the time. I am also taking an antidepressant because I was dealing with some pretty severe depression for a long time. But I'm gradually getting off of that because since I've been taking Kratom, I don't feel that I need it anymore. Kratom has helped me drastically. So yeah, again, Kratom is probably not going to work to stop a panic attack in progress. Really, benzodiazepines are the only thing that's going to do that. But it can definitely make anxiety a lot more manageable, which is what it's done for me. Like I said, my mild anxiety that I generally feel on a daily basis is gone. I haven't had a panic attack in a very long time. These days, I only get them maybe once a year, if that. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 years in between panic attacks. I still, like I said, still have been dealing with mild anxiety, um, but panic attacks are pretty rare for me now. And I feel like that's like the Kratom has helped put a stop to that as well. I did almost have a panic attack a couple weeks ago, I think. Um, Started to feel really anxious, and I had taken Kratom that day and stuff, and it just didn't. I mean, I didn't really have to make any sort of effort to put a stop to the panic. It just didn't reach that point. It almost felt like it was going to, but it never quite did. Um, so yeah, Kratom has definitely helped me. It's helped the depression. It eliminated my depression. I feel like I'm back to my old self again. Um, it's not going to solve all of your problems in life, but Kratom, it has been sort of a miracle for me. I mean, it's helped with so many different things. It's helped with my anxiety, my depression. Um, I had, restless leg syndrome, and it has completely eliminated that. Um, my blood pressure, I've gone without, I have high blood pressure. I've gone without my blood pressure medicine for well over a week now, probably about 10 days, I think. And I've been checking my blood pressure a couple times a day. It's been totally fine, nearly perfect. And that's after 10 days of not taking my blood pressure medicine. And I honestly believe that it's from the Kratom. I mean, I haven't made any other changes in my life, so that's the only thing that could really explain it. Um, I've also been losing weight without changing my diet or the amount of exercise. And I don't know if that's because of the Kratom. I mean, honestly, I really have no idea. I'm not, I don't think there's been enough studies done on Kratom to know exactly how it can affect you. But I do honestly am starting to believe that it's increased my metabolism. Because like I said, I haven't been dieting, or there's been no change in the amount of exercise I get on a day-to-day basis, but I've been consistently losing weight over the last couple months. So that's, if it is the Kratom, then yay, like maybe it can help some of you who are struggling with weight issues, as I am. Um, but yeah, I definitely know for a fact that it has drastically helped with my anxiety and depression in a way that no antidepressant ever could. Um, and it doesn't have the negative effects, that a lot of antidepressants have, and that a lot of other anxiety medications have. Um, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to make this video to, possibly help you guys out with dealing with your anxiety and panic attacks, and to let you know, just how much Kratom can help. It definitely can. So if you haven't tried it and you suffer from anxiety or depression, definitely give it a try, because it works for me better than anything ever has. Again, it's not going to stop a panic attack in progress, but it could prevent that panic attack from ever happening, if you're taking Kratom on a regular basis. And it's been more helpful to me than any antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication has been. So yeah, and a lot of people take it for pain too, obviously. This video is pretty much focused on anxiety, but there are a whole bunch of things that people take Kratom for. And I've come across so many stories on YouTube and elsewhere of people that Kratom has literally saved their lives, or at least drastically changed their lives for the better. So yeah, Kratom is awesome. I'm going to end this video for now. I hope that it can help some of you out there who may be suffering from anxiety and panic attacks, or even depression, or anything else. Yeah, if you are somebody who suffers from anxiety, somebody who suffers from anxiety, just, feel free to comment down below. Let us know about your experiences with it. Let us know how Kratom has helped you or not helped you. I mean, I can't guarantee that it's going to help everybody. It affects everyone differently. But yeah, just discuss down in the comments below. Leave a like. Subscribe. That's the most important thing. And share with everyone. People need to know how awesome Kratom is and just how much it can help with some of the issues that millions of people around the world are suffering from, and are trying really hard to relieve, I guess. It's very hard to find any sort of relief for anxiety and panic disorders. Same with depression. And Kratom can help. It seriously helped me, and I know it's helped so many others. So yeah, share, spread the word, get the news out there. And also, I just want to throw this in there. I forgot to mention it earlier. If you do not suffer from panic attacks or anxiety disorders, but you know someone who does, and you don't quite know how to handle it when that person has an anxiety or panic attack around you, basically all I can say is, number one, do not ask them why they're anxious. Don't say, oh, well, there's nothing going on right now that should be making you anxious. That's not how anxiety works. It's not necessarily related to something that's happening around you. Some people suffer from social anxiety, and being in like a crowded place, that can trigger a panic attack. But it's not always like that. That same person might have a panic attack while they're sitting at home doing absolutely nothing, just in the middle of watching a movie or whatever. I mean, they can hit you randomly, and it's not always related to something that's happening around you. Do not smother them with attention. The best thing is to just sort of keep quiet, leave them alone. If they ask you for some sort of help, then help them. Maybe just sit there with them, tell them it's okay. There's not actually anything wrong with them. It's just anxiety. Some people just need to be talked through it. That's happened to me a couple times. I had to have a friend, but usually it's other people who have also suffered with anxiety and understand it and know exactly what I'm going through. They can sit with me and, just put an arm around my shoulder and be like, hey, you're okay. I'm here with you. It's just anxiety. It's just anxiety. Nothing's actually wrong. Whatever. However, that can also make it worse for some people. So, like I said, it's best to just remain quiet. Just be there. And if they ask you to, talk to them, or if they ask you, for a glass of water or whatever, just respect what they're going through and handle it delicately, because panic attacks are extremely hard. They are the most terrifying thing that you could ever possibly imagine. And yeah, it's imperative that you deal with it in the right way. And again, it's best to just sort of stay quiet. Don't smother them with attention. And yeah. So again, I'm Tim Patron. This is Kratom Craze. Hope you enjoyed the video. And I will see you next time. Peace out.